Crazy. We jump, 10, 11, 12. This nerve emerges from the brainstem superior to the foramen magnum, but then it wanders south out of the cranium and descends into the thoracic cavity and or the abdominal pelvic cavity. This is the wandering cranial nerve. It's the only one that descends inferior to the clavicles. There are some that go in the neck. That's like accessory is number 11. It does the neck. But inferior to the neck would be clavicles. The only cranial nerve that emerges past inferior to the clavicles, valgus. What is the number for valgus? It's number 10. That's the big X. Now, we could ask you, what type of function does it have? This is a little bit tricky. We do this in lecture. If a cranial nerve has an autonomic function, it always will be parasympathetic. There is no sympathetic autonomic cranial nerve. Are you with me? Another name for parasympathetic is called craniosacral division. That's chapter 14. We talk about the pudendal nerve coming out of the sacral plexus. The other parasympathetic autonomic nerves will come out of the cranium. Mostly important, we learn on the test, number 10, the vagus nerve. With me? So what it does, if it's parasympathetic, what would it do to the heart? This is the aortic arch. They took away the heart, or they didn't want to pay for it. Would it make the heart rate faster or slower? Slower. If I have a higher heart rate, I'm excited. Sympathetic is E activities. But this is a cranial nerve. There is no sympathetic autonomic function. It's parasympathetic. We call it R and R, rest and repose. We're preparing our body to rest now that we have dealt with an immediate threat, fight or flight. So it's going to slow down the heart. What would it do to the smooth muscle of the stomach? Would it make it want to contract and pummel the food? Or would it want to stop the smooth muscle of the stomach? This is part of your digestion. Remember Slewdad we wrote? It actually would make it pummel and move. And that's part of the sound you hear on the weekends. You smell the potluck at the church. And the pastor says, now we're going to enjoy some really good fellowship and food. And let's pray. And then you hear the gurgle. That's your involuntary parasympathetic, like, darn stomach, stop. That's your vagus nerve. That's vagal nerve stimulation. Are you with me? So digestive organs, it would actually make it move more. It also would make the food move by peristalsis towards the rectum. And no surprise, you're going to probably have a bowel movement soon. So it would slow down the heart rate and would increase the muscle contractions of the stomach and the intestines you don't see. Does that make sense? That's the vagus nerve.
That mixes it up, or just...
It is mixed. Yeah. The good rule is there are 4 that are motor, but we don't do any in lab.
Okay.
There are 2 that are pure sensory, 1 and 2. Everybody else is mixed. When in doubt, say mixed. All right, here we have what region of the vertebra is this? So what type of nerves emerge from the cervical vertebra? Cervical spinal nerves. How many do we have total? 8. 1 more than the number of cervical vertebrae. So there are 8. Now C1 through C4 merge together to form a plexus. What do we call that plexus? What is the only nerve on Stickman that comes here, number 1? It looks crazy. It looks like it's coming to his belly button. But it's really going to a muscle that divides the thoracic cavity from the abdominal pelvic cavity. The phrenic nerve. Now you can control this. The diaphragm muscle is skeletal muscle. So this one does have a somatic motor function to it. That's a phrenic nerve. Comes from the cervical plexus. That's all you need to know. Now what's the biggest plexus here that is superior to the belly button, to the umbilicus? Yeah, and you even have a B here for brachial plexus. This is going to merge some of the cervical ventral rami and some of the thoracic ventral rami, and then to one brachial plexus. Now we know that we have four nerves that emerge. One of them is called the axillary nerve. It's going to pass to the sensory here in the armpit. It also will control this muscle responsible for humerus abduction at the shoulder. What would that muscle be? Deltoid. That's a good one. What neurotransmitter gets released from the axillary nerve to make the deltoid contract? Acetylcholine. Acetylcholine. Depends on if you're British or not. Next, we have three nerves that are not hard if you focus on your bones. We go over here to the elbow or the antecubital area. What is this nerve here, number 2, that is going to pass next to the thumb? What's this number 2? Numbers will be covered up. Radial. That's right. We have the radial and the thumb, the hitchhiker. Number 3 is the bone that's next, the medial forearm bone. What's the bone down under? Ulna. Number 3. There's no bone in the middle of the forearm. There's no bone between the radius and the ulna. But we do have a nerve that goes between the two. What's that called?
Median.
The median. That's number 14. Now we notice it goes over here, close to the tendon to the palmaris longus. This gets severed when some people try to commit suicide by severing this radial artery and try to bleed to death. Do you feel good about these here in the brachial plexus? All right, here comes a trick question. What plexus exists in this area here? There isn't one. What is the plexus that doesn't exist?
Intercostal nerves.
Thoracic plexus. There's not a thoracic plexus. Rather, the ventral rami of the thoracic, here we can see the ventral ramus here, the ventral rami of the thoracic spinal nerves will move forward and form the intercostal nerves. What muscles get stimulated by the intercostal nerves?
Diaphragm.
Intercostal muscles.
Intercostal muscles,
Oh, yeah.
internal and external. And what important function is that part of the intercostal muscles? Respiration. That's AMP2. You guys are getting ready for AMP2. Now we jump down here. Come here, Stickman. And we see a network, a plexus, that emerges from this area. What would this be?
Lumbar.
This is the lumbar plexus. Got a silly question. How many lumbar vertebrae do we have?
5.
How many lumbar spinal nerve pairs do we have?
5.
You guys are good. If you know one, you know the other. Your confidence is high. Now this plexus will diverge into different nerves. One nerve has the nerve, number 5, to pass through this largest foramen hole in the os coxa. The obturator nerve passes through the obturator foramen. This is why you've been learning these holes and bumps. That nerve, obturator nerve, not shown, will be directed immediately to the medial compartment of the thigh. And what group of muscles are in the medial compartment?
Adductor.
The adductors. And we learned 3 on our list. Adductor longus in the lap, adductor magnus near our gluteus maximus. And what was the slender medial muscle? Gracilis. So our adductor group, all 3 of them are innervated by the obturator nerve. Now we can get rid of this obturator nerve and not talk about it much. We have another nerve. This nerve number 4 is coming through, it's not clear, it comes over here close to this iliac crest, and it's going to pass along the anterior compartment of the thigh. What is the word for thigh?
Femoral.
Femoral. What do you think the nerve is that goes to the front of the thigh?
Femoral.
The femoral nerve. Now, we're done with the lumbar plexus. We're ready to go to the sacral plexus. It's easier to look downstairs here, and we see coming out of the sacrum the merging of multiple ventral rami from sacral spinal nerves. Now we notice that one nerve, this is the largest nerve in the body. We're playing Jeopardy right now. It has the nerve to pass through the greater sciatic notch. I keep moving all these silly things here. What would that nerve be? Sciatic nerve. And it's going to go not in the medial thigh or the anterior thigh, but the posterior compartment. If you get compression in your lumbar region, we many times sense it by compression of the sciatic nerve. That disease state is called sciatica. It will always be a sharp pain in the posterior thigh, and it can immigrate all the way down to your toes.